A man walks down a crowded city street on an ordinary afternoon in 2014. People pass him on both sides. Cars roll by, shop signs flicker, and security cameras mounted on nearly every corner quietly record the flow of daily life. Nothing appears unusual. He isn't running, he isn't looking over his shoulder, and he isn't acting strange in any way. And then, without warning, without struggle, without a single frame of visible disruption, he vanishes. Not in hours. Not in the dead of night, but in exactly 7 minutes. Investigators would later replay that footage hundreds of times, slowing it down frame by frame, searching for a shadow, a silhouette, a flicker, anything that might explain how a grown man could simply cease to exist on one of the most heavily surveilled streets in the city. Yet every time they reviewed the footage, the result remained the same. He walked into the frame, and he never walked out. His phone signal dropped instantly, as if cut mid-stride. His bank account froze forever. His digital life went silent. And with no clues left behind, police were left staring at security monitors, asking themselves how someone could disappear in a place where disappearing should be impossible. This video begins by stepping into that ordinary day, reconstructing the moments leading up to the mystery that has baffled investigators for more than a decade. We will walk the same street he walked, examine the same footage police have combed through for years, and explore every second of the timeline that turned a routine stroll into one of the strangest vanishings ever recorded. This isn't just a missing person case. It's a puzzle that defies logic. A disappearance that challenges the reliability of modern surveillance, and a story that continues to raise unsettling questions. As we explore the final minutes before he vanished, I'll see how a simple walk became a haunting enigma. A man captured on camera from multiple angles, monitored by a network of lenses designed to ensure no one can vanish unnoticed. Yet somehow, he did. And what happened during those 7 minutes remains one of the most chilling mysteries investigators have ever faced. It began as an ordinary afternoon in 2014, the kind of day most people forget the moment it ends. The weather was mild, the street was busy, and commuters moved like clockwork through the city's crowded walkway. Among them was a 34-year-old man whose quiet routine would soon become the center of one of the most baffling investigations ever recorded. CCTV footage shows him entering the frame at exactly 5:41 p.m., hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. He wasn't on the phone, he wasn't rushing to meet anyone, and he didn't appear anxious or distracted. In every sense, he looked like a man simply walking home. What makes this moment haunting is not what he does, it's what he doesn't do. He doesn't turn around, doesn't exchange words with anyone, doesn't check his phone. His pace remains steady as he passes storefronts, pedestrians, and a bus stop filled with people who would later testify that they never noticed anything unusual. As he continues forward, he is caught by 5 different cameras positioned at different angles, all capturing him in crisp clarity. But what none of these cameras capture is the moment of his disappearance. Over the next 7 minutes, he moves down the street in a straightforward path with no side turns or detours. Footage shows him walking behind a delivery truck for 6 seconds, one of the only brief moments he is partially obscured. But when he emerges, he looks exactly the same. No struggle. No sudden shift in behavior. No indication of what is about to happen. To observers, this would be just another commuter making his way home. But these would be the last recorded moments of his life, because before the clock strikes 5:48 p.m., he will vanish from the world without leaving a single trace. When investigators reviewed the footage, they focused heavily on the 7 minutes between his first appearance and the moment he vanished. They broke down the walk into microsegments, analyzing his pace, body language, direction, and surroundings. The first minute at 5:41 p.m. was straightforward. He entered the street from the east entrance, captured clearly by camera 12. The second minute, 5:42 p.m. shows him walking past a bakery. Customers inside confirmed they saw no interaction with anyone outside. At 5:43 p.m., he passed a parked taxi. The driver later reported he didn't see anyone approach the man or follow him. The most scrutinized moment came at 5:44 p.m. when he briefly walked behind a large delivery truck. For 6 seconds, the truck blocked the camera's view. These 6 seconds became a focal point for investigators, online theorists, and anyone trying to understand the case. But when the footage resumes, he steps back into the frame looking exactly as before. No signs of distress, no additional figures around him, no vehicles pulling away. Nothing. At 5:45 p.m., his phone signal abruptly cuts, not a gradual signal drop, but a sudden instantaneous disconnect, as if the device had been forcibly shut off or destroyed. By 5:47 p.m., he appears on the final camera at the end of the street. That camera, camera 21, overlooks the only exit point that leads to a wider intersection. But he never reaches that intersection. Investigators replayed the seconds following his last appearance hundreds of times. The camera should have captured him walking out of the frame, yet it shows nothing. The street isn't empty. Other pedestrians move across the scene, but the man simply never reappears. It's as if he dissolved between one frame and the next. In 7 minutes, a man under full surveillance walked into a monitored street and never walked out. No one has yet explained how. When the man's family reported him missing later that night, they couldn't have imagined how unusual the case would become. At first, police treated it like a routine disappearance, canvassing the neighborhood, calling local hospitals, checking for emergency incidents. But within 24 hours, the case escalated. Investigators reviewed CCTV footage from the area and realized something was deeply wrong. The man had vanished at a location where disappearing was virtually impossible. The street contained cameras at every exit point, all functioning normally that day. None showed him leaving. Detectives formed a timeline and began searching nearby businesses for additional footage. They visited the bakery, the convenience store, the bus stop, and several nearby apartment buildings. All confirmed the same truth. The man was seen entering the area, but no footage captured him leaving. Investigators expanded the search radius, pulling footage from surrounding streets and alleyways. Still nothing. Not a single camera recorded him after 5:47 p.m. Witness interviews were conducted next. Shop owners, street vendors, delivery drivers, and commuters were questioned. None reported any altercation, suspicious figure, or unusual event. One woman recalled seeing a man matching his description earlier in the day, but wasn't certain. A bus driver thought he recognized him, but the timestamp didn't align. Every promising lead quickly fell apart. Police introduced sniffer dogs to track his scent, but the trail ended near the same spot where the last camera saw him. No scent leading to an alley, doorway, or vehicle. Just a cold stop as if the man had evaporated. Experienced investigators later described this case as one of the most unsettling they'd ever encountered. Not because of what they found, but because of what they didn't. The absence of evidence was the evidence, and it made no sense. In the modern world, almost no one disappears without leaving a digital footprint. Phones ping cell towers, bank cards register transactions, social media logs activity. But in this case, every digital trace ended at the exact moment he vanished. The man's phone was connected to the network until 5:45 p.m. This was confirmed through tower data. Then, without warning, the device abruptly stopped transmitting. It didn't power down slowly or lose battery. It dropped instantly, a type of signal termination usually associated with sudden physical destruction or being placed inside a specialized signal-blocking environment. Investigators requested access to the man's financial records. His last transaction had been hours before, a small purchase at a grocery store. After the disappearance, his bank account showed no withdrawals, no online activity, nothing indicating voluntary escape or planned disappearance. His social media accounts remained untouched. His email was never logged into again. There were no travel reservations, no ticket purchases, no attempts to contact friends, coworkers, or family. It was as if he ceased to exist in the digital space at the same moment he vanished from the physical world. Experts were brought in to analyze the phone's last known coordinates, but triangulation produced no movement after 5:45 p.m. In fact, the device appeared stationary until its final recorded moment. Cyber teams examined the possibility of hacking, data tampering, or digital manipulation, but found no evidence. The man's online life ended the same minute he disappeared on camera. This digital dead end added a chilling layer to the case. Disappearances often involve trails mistakes, transactions, communication slips. Here, there were none. The silence wasn't just eerie. It was unnatural. Police privately admitted they'd never seen a disappearance so clean, so sudden, and so completely devoid of digital residue. It became one of the case's most haunting mysteries. With the digital trail cold and CCTV providing no answers, investigators turned to traditional methods. They conducted a full-ground search of the surrounding blocks, calling in uniformed officers, volunteers, and tracking dogs. Every trash bin, alleyway, stairwell, and rooftop access point was inspected. Buildings nearby were asked to unlock basements and maintenance rooms for police to search. Manholes were checked. Construction sites were examined for signs of recent disruption. But every search ended the same way. Nothing. No dropped wallet, no shoe, no discarded clothing, not even a broken phone fragment. Next, investigators examined the delivery truck he briefly walked behind. The driver was questioned thoroughly and cleared. The truck's cargo was inspected, nothing unusual. The 6-second blind spot the truck created became a fixation, but experts concluded it was impossible for him to be abducted, dragged, or harmed within that short time frame without drawing attention or appearing on camera afterward. Forensic analysts studied the area frame by frame, slowing down every shot of pedestrians and vehicles to check for clues bags, moving shadows, objects being carried away. Still nothing. No one walking suspiciously, no car stopping abruptly, no signs of a struggle. The street continued functioning normally around him, unaware that the man in the footage was living his final recorded minutes. As weeks passed, the case only grew stranger. Bodies are found. Evidence eventually appears. Witnesses come forward. But in this case, nothing surfaced. Not that day, not that week, not even years later. There were no remains, no belongings, no credible sightings anywhere in the country. Investigators were forced to face a chilling possibility. The disappearance did not follow any pattern they recognized. It was as if the man had been swallowed by the city itself. With no physical or digital evidence, investigators began exploring theories, some logical, others unsettling. The first theory suggested he might have gained access to a hidden underground entrance, possibly a service door or maintenance hatch. But after mapping the entire street's infrastructure, police confirmed there were no accessible underground entrances near his last known location. The second theory focused on professional abduction. Could a highly trained individual or group have taken him so efficiently that no camera recorded it? Experts doubted it. Abductions involve movement, vehicles, or additional people, none of which were visible on any footage. Besides, there was no motive. He was not wealthy, involved in crime, or connected to anyone of interest. The third theory suggested a camera malfunction or tampering. Could someone have hacked the system to delete just a few seconds of footage? Technicians examined the raw files and found no signs of manipulation. All cameras were functioning normally, timestamps consistent, and no missing frames. A fourth theory speculated voluntary disappearance. He willingly walked away from his life. But this theory fell apart quickly. People planning to disappear withdraw money, pack belongings, or leave notes. He did none of these. He had made plans with coworkers for the next day. His rent was paid. His personal relationships were stable. Nothing suggested he intended to vanish. Lastly came the most disturbing theory, the one that investigators rarely discussed publicly. It suggested that the man entered a micro-blind spot, a rare angle where cameras do not cover, and something happened within that sliver of space. But even this theory failed to explain the instant phone disconnect or the total lack of physical evidence. In the end, each theory led to more questions, not answers. While investigators worked tirelessly, the man's family endured the slow agony of uncertainty. At first, they believed he would return within hours, that perhaps he had gotten lost, injured, or temporarily disconnected. But as days passed without a single clue, hope turned into fear. His parents gave emotional interviews, describing him as responsible, gentle, and predictable. He had no history of running away, no debt, and no mental health struggles. He was deeply connected to his family, making his disappearance even more confusing. His siblings posted missing person flyers throughout the city, hoping a witness might come forward. They checked hospitals daily, called his phone repeatedly, and monitored his email for any sign of activity. Nothing changed. His phone remained inactive. His accounts untouched. His apartment exactly as he left it. Months later, the family entered a painful routine visits with detectives, press conferences, annual candlelight vigils. They kept his belongings untouched, his room preserved, convinced he might walk through the door someday. The lack of answers was tormenting. Without evidence of life or death, his family lived in an emotional limbo. The case garnered national attention, and thousands of people online began discussing theories. Yet the more people speculated, the more confused the case became. For the family, the attention was a blessing and a burden. They were grateful that people cared, but each false lead brought heartbreak. 1 year later, investigators held a press briefing, admitting that the case had produced fewer leads than almost any disappearance they had ever seen. His family's hope never fully faded, but their trust in the system wavered. How could a person vanish in a public place with cameras everywhere? How could an entire city fail to find one trace? And why did no one see what happened in those 7 minutes? Investigators eventually focused on the last 30 seconds before the man vanished. Those final frames became the most analyzed footage in the entire case. At 5 hours 47 minutes and 13 seconds p.m., he appears walking steadily toward the end of the street. At 5 hours 47 minutes and 18 seconds p.m., he passes a lamppost. At 5 hours 47 minutes and 22 seconds p.m., he moves closer to the camera, his face clearly visible. At 5 hours 47 minutes and 26 seconds p.m., he's near the point where the camera should capture him transitioning into the next frame. At 5 hours 47 minutes and 29 seconds p.m., 3 pedestrians walk behind him and a cyclist passes nearby. But at 5 hours 47 minutes and 31 seconds p.m., he is gone. The camera continues recording normally, capturing cars driving by, people crossing the street, and the usual evening traffic. But the man never appears again, not even a shadow. Detectives studied every angle of his last visible moment. Could he have slipped into a doorway? No, the nearest door was locked and monitored. Could he have turned sharply out of frame? No, the angle of the camera would have captured that movement. Could he have ducked into a vehicle? No vehicle stopped near him. The 6-second blind spot behind the delivery truck remained a point of debate. But the timeline proved he vanished long after passing the truck, not during it. Forensic experts analyzed reflections in nearby windows, shadows on the pavement, and even the movement of other pedestrians to find clues. They examined audio, enhanced pixelated frames, and reconstructed the scene with digital modeling. Still, the outcome was the same. He was there one moment and gone the next. This analysis led one investigator to admit privately, It is the closest thing to someone disappearing into thin air that I've ever seen. And those words would follow the case for years. As months turned into years, the investigation slowed. Lead detectives were reassigned, and the case moved to the Cold Files Division. Yet despite officially going cold, the case never truly faded. Amateur detectives online continued to analyze footage, create theories, and map possible escape routes. Theories ranged from logical to bizarre. Some suggested underground tunnels. Others proposed staged abduction, while a few pointed toward more paranormal explanations. Police occasionally revisited the case, especially when new technology for video analysis or digital tracking became available. But even advanced tools failed to uncover new information. The footage remained unchanged. The digital trail remained silent. No new witnesses ever came forward. Every re-examination reaffirmed the same chilling timeline. Over time, the case became a cautionary tale for investigators. It was cited in training programs, documentaries, and true crime discussions as an example of how even the most monitored environments could still contain mysteries. Detectives who had worked the case often described it as unfinished business, a puzzle with missing pieces that may never be found. Despite the lack of progress, his family continued to push for answers. They held yearly memorials, released statements, and pleaded for anyone with information, even the slightest detail, to come forward. But nothing ever did. The man remained missing, his story frozen in time. 10 years after the disappearance, the case was officially labeled unsolved but still open. Investigators admitted that they had exhausted nearly every avenue. Unless new evidence surfaced or someone came forward with a confession, the disappearance of the man who vanished in 7 minutes would remain one of the most haunting mysteries in modern surveillance history. And so far, no such evidence has emerged. A decade later, the disappearance remains as chilling as the day it happened. Detectives still recall reviewing the footage, rewinding the frames repeatedly, each time expecting to notice something new, but finding the same impossible truth. For many, this case altered how they viewed surveillance. They once believed that a modern city covered in cameras made vanishing virtually impossible. This case shattered that certainty. Theories continue to swirl online. Some believe he slipped into an unnoticed architectural blind spot. Others propose he was taken by someone with advanced knowledge of surveillance gaps. A few suggest he may have suffered an acute medical episode and collapsed somewhere out of sight, though this theory fails to explain the lack of physical evidence. And then there are those who think something far stranger happened, something investigators cannot easily categorize. What makes the case so haunting isn't just the disappearance, it's the silence that followed. No traces, no clues, no evidence of foul play, no signs of voluntary escape. It is the kind of mystery that forces people to reconsider how well they truly understand the world around them. Even today, his family still asks the same question. How can someone vanish from a street where disappearing should be impossible? Investigators admit that without new evidence, the case will remain an unsolved anomaly, one that defies logic, technology, and every investigative rule in the book. In the end, the man's disappearance leaves us not with answers, but with a lingering sense of unease. We assume cameras protect us. We assume the world is predictable. We assume no one can simply vanish into nothing. But in those 7 minutes in 2014, one man did, and the void he left behind is a mystery that continues to disturb, fascinate, and haunt all who study it. In the end, the disappearance of the man who vanished in 7 minutes leaves us with a truth far more unsettling than any theory ever proposed. Despite cameras on every corner, investigators working around the clock, advanced technology, and a decade of public speculation, we are left with nothing but questions. How could someone vanish in a place where vanishing should be impossible? How can a digital footprint go silent in the exact second a man disappears? And how can an entire city filled with witnesses, movement, noise, and surveillance swallow a person whole without leaving behind even a single trace? Cases like this remind us that even in a world defined by information, there are still mysteries that slip through the cracks, moments that challenge logic, and events that defy the systems we trust to keep us connected, visible, and safe. As we step away from this story, the last recorded image of him lingers like a shadow frozen in time, a man walking toward an exit he never reached. Perhaps the truth will surface one day. Perhaps someone will recognize a detail the world overlooked. But until that moment comes, we are left with a chilling silence and an unresolved absence, a mystery that continues to haunt investigators, puzzle analysts, and break the hearts of those who loved him. And so, the question remains, echoing long after the footage ends. What really happened in those 7 minutes?